When I first moved to Jamaica, I thought I was going to have a fresh start. Everything was going to work out. I mean, I knew there'd be challenges, but I really thought like it would be just related to work. But boy, was I wrong. I learned the one saying, wherever you go, there you are. Hey guys, welcome back. I'm so excited to be back at my desk. It's been 2 weeks of travel, but by popular demand, people said they wanted to hear a video about the lessons that I learned while living abroad. Let me start with Jamaica. So when I went to Jamaica, I really was looking for a fresh start. I was so over living in Washington, D.C. area. I hated the career that I had. It just wasn't what I had hoped for when I went to law school. And I knew that I wanted to do something more creative. But to do that and to even figure things out, as I mentioned before, I needed a break. So Jamaica seemed like a great place. I'd been there before. And I went to the west end of Negril in Westmoreland. So, you know, a touristy area, but the west end is known to be have a bit more of a local vibe than the beach. And I had my little apartment there. But let me tell you, I created a career for myself. Yes, I became a journalist. I became a travel photographer. And I knew that that's what I wanted to do, was to become a travel writer. And I started slowly there, you know. Jamaica kind of was like my muse for that. There was so much cultural content to cover. But what I underestimated was the difficulty of the other part of life, right? The personal side, the friendships, the relationship side, all of those things that I had hoped I had left behind in DC and in Maryland, thinking that my love life was going to somehow maybe not even improve, but just that I would be okay. You know, I would be so focused on work that everything would be fine, and I wouldn't worry so much about the things that women worry about, which is like being married and having kids and all of these things that didn't work out for me when I was in the States at the time. So I underestimated that wouldn't bother me when I left, that I would be so consumed with being in a new place and doing a new hobby and new things that I would be so excited. And let me tell you, wherever you go, there you are. That is a phrase I learned on very early in Jamaica. It's just as hard to make friends, particularly in a tourist area. It is, and I did have good friends, but come to think of it, you know, we didn't have a lot in common. We didn't have the same backgrounds. We didn't have the same wants. We didn't have the same choices even when it came to relationships. But it was just not, it was not good for the personal side of things. It was great for my career, but it wasn't. And so there were moments when I was like extremely lonely again, just like I had felt when I was in DC, and, you know, down, and I just couldn't figure out what it was. And I realized, like, wow, this is actually, it's not just about the external, like work and stuff like that. It's also about working on myself. And the common denominator was me. So what was it about my choices, and what was it about my personal life that wasn't working out, and why? And I really had to look internally and, you know, realize that it's up to me to create the life that I wanted to have. No one was coming to save me. Not in Jamaica, not in the US, not anywhere, right? And I needed more balance in my life, but that was up to me to figure out. So that was a really powerful lesson that I learned while I was in Jamaica. I always say it's one lesson, but there's many, right? And they're all interwoven. Because part of that is, you know, when you choose a place to live abroad, even as a digital nomad or for a certain amount of time, as a winter bird even, you really should pick a place that you feel like reflects your own values, or a place that you feel like it's not just superficial, right? So you might be lured by the hum and the buzz of like tourist destinations, you know, and they tend to be livelier. They tend to have a lot more going on. But the reality is that it's very skewed in tourist regions. A lot of people are there just to make money. A lot of people are transient, you know, they're not there forever. And those that are already have their little circles established, it's just it's not a very healthy environment to be a part of. Personally, I don't think so. So I learned from that you should, you know, if you're a single woman especially, you should try to be in a city, you know, try to be in a city that has a lot going on, and then you can do day trips, or you can explore the country easier, you can move around, and but you can also meet people from all over the world around you, including locals, right? So it's like more of the same kind of, I don't know how to say it, but it's kind of like this, it's kind of like meeting people who are on the same wavelength, right, that you are on. You're more likely to find that in a big city than in a beachy tourist town. So that's something that I learned very early on about Jamaica. I'm very thankful for it. Jamaica launched my travel journalism career, but I had some really, really tough moments there where I had to truly look inside of myself and understand that I needed to make some changes and that no one else was going to do them for me. I remember going on a night walk. It was supposed to be like adventurous, risky, whatever. And we saw all sorts of little creepy crawlies and even a snake. The most dangerous snake in Central America, called a fer de lance, was literally crossing the path. And our guide, thank God, they're super well trained. I remember him going like, stop, stop, stop. And because they can feel the movement in the ground, and fer de lance is super dangerous, and it can just like strike you. It can even turn around and strike you. I was so scared, shitless. But all of these different experiences taught me the importance of nature. I even had to write a guide, an underwater guide to Belize as part of my guidebook. And I never knew about all of these different creatures and their function and how everything just makes sense. And I became a diver, and I mean, I went rappelling, I went river tubing. It's just like, and then, you know, you meet the Maya and the Garifuna, for whom like sustainability is just a way of life. You know, they live around nature, they know how to live from it and with it. And these are all things that people are talking about now, but this was like years ago, right? So for me, Belize was transformational in terms of understanding my place in the world and in nature, and how I'm part of all of that, and why I need to protect it, and why I need to encourage people to, you know, go visit national parks when you're in places. The fees are important. Don't leave any traces. Learn about the wildlife. Go hiking, go trekking. I mean, all of these different things. And so, I mean, it might sound simple to people, but for someone who didn't grow up learning about those things, it was definitely transformational for me to be outdoors and to see with my own eyes and feel nature. So for that, I'm very thankful to Belize. And if you want to know more about living in Belize, you can watch my video. And I also have a second video about the top 5 places that you can consider living in long term there. I'll never forget the one time I was in Puerto Plata on the north coast of the Dominican Republic. And they said that a major storm was coming through. I think it was even like an expected like Category 1 hurricane or something. And the Puerto Plata Malecón, which is like the boardwalk, you could tell out there that it was getting rough. I mean, the water, you know, the sea was starting to go over the boardwalk and spilling into the roads. And it was, you know, getting dark, and there were still people in the street. And not only that, but like on the eve of a major storm as it comes in, people were filling up the colmado. The colmado is like a corner bar, like a local bar in a neighborhood. And they were just drinking and playing dominoes and laughing. And I was just like the only person semi-terrified, thinking, what is wrong with everyone? Go home. But and that happened again, by the way. I remember when the 2 major Category 5s, I'm sure everybody remembers these, the ones that really pummeled Puerto Rico. There was Hurricane Maria and also Irma. And both times, I did not see the panic that I should have seen in Dominican Republic. And that is what that country taught me. And the people there Dominicans are just, they have a superpower. And that superpower is to be grateful for every single day and to just take it as it comes. And they just have this love for life that I have not felt anywhere else. Not to that level. And it's not like some cliche, they don't have much, but they're still happy. No, that's not what it is. That's not what it is at all. They do have their struggles, and they recognize it, though. They recognize it, but they're still very faithful. They have such a strong belief in God for most part. Of course, there are exceptions. No one's perfect, but for the most part, there's this very strong belief in God and this very strong, like, thanks to God for everything. And thanks to God for the bread that we have today. Thanks to God that we're alive today. I mean, it's just like, everything is Dios, right? It's very familiar with Ethiopian culture, which I grew up in, where, our average everyday language includes the word God and the spirituality of it, right? Thanks to God. I mean, it's like, even when we say thank you, it's embedded in there. And it's the same for Dominicans. And I think that has a part in it because there's just a joie de vivre. There's like a seize the moment, carpe diem kind of sentiment that I totally fell in love with. And I think that's one of the reasons why I moved there. Especially in Santo Domingo, you can really feel it. There's just, you can feel life. It's just so there, and you feel alive. And it's just like, it's a very powerful superpower to have. So no matter what the difficulties they go through, they have this benefit in their personality, and I just think it's amazing. And if I could bottle it up, honestly, I would take it. A lot of people bash on the DR or Dominicans rather, but I think you need to make a separation between the government and the people. So and I have been there as a digital nomad, as a journalist for many, many, many years, as a travel journalist, and no one can tell me anything about the DR because I've been all over the country. I know how things really are. I know the pain points, but I also know the positives. And that, my friends, is a major positive. And I wish I could just keep with me every time. And I try my best. So I spent 2 months in Grenada, and it's probably one of the shortest amounts of time that I've spent in places, but I still think it counts. I was definitely embedded in the local community. I would say more like the middle class folks. When I went there, I connected online with a lady who was an entrepreneur, young Grenadian entrepreneur at the time, and she's probably one of the first to have an Airbnb type of setup. She had next to her home, they'd built her and her husband had built apartments that you could rent, and it was a little bit outside of St. George's. Yeah, it was at least a 15-minute car ride, which was fine. And she, when I reached out, she knew I was a creator and she really encouraged me to visit and she wanted me to get to know Grenada. And then I went and stayed closer to St. George's at another sort of apartment setup that her friend also owned. And this one was a Grenadian who was in the UK and then moved back. Actually, both of them were. So they were very inspiring women, very entrepreneurial. The one thing I learned from Grenada, though, is that it's good to create projects for yourself. When you move abroad, it's because you don't want your days to be completely empty. It's good to relax, but if you're somebody like me who doesn't really like having too much downtime and likes to be on the go, or, it's not even just that, to feel fulfilled and to have your days mean something, I think is important. So whether it's volunteering, finding out an NGO that you can be a part of long term, not just in and out, but not just one time and then leave, but stay there, get to know people who work in these fields, or create a creative project for yourself and then get to know locals that way and get them to contribute or something. But I think it's a really important way to ease your entry and ease your stay in that destination and also have your days be busy, right? You don't want to be isolated. I think that's the most important thing about moving abroad is create community. It's really important. Otherwise, you'll just end up feeling as poorly as you did in a place that you left. So there are many ways to do that. And I think that, I'm happy to break down some of the ways you can meet other people and create community for yourself while you're abroad. I think that's really critical. And that is something that Grenada taught me. I made friends with, these local entrepreneurs who were kind of the same wavelength. So I never felt lonely. And then there was also a university nearby, and I made friends with some of the university students, some of whom I'm still connected with. They were in a medical school. There's a big medical school in St. George's. And yeah, so, I had friends to go out with in the evening sometimes to grab a drink or have food or go to the fish fry and stuff like that. So I think it's very important to pick places that have these kinds of dynamic communities, and Grenada is certainly a great example of that. So why didn't I stay? You're probably wondering, well, why didn't you stay then? Well, I think for me it was just too small. It's a lovely island, but at the time, 14 years ago, I needed more I needed to be able to fly to other places easily. I needed to have more contacts. I needed to have more content as well. And so Grenada just felt small very quickly. Maybe at this time in my life, it would have been different. So that's another consideration. It's never going to be the same. It depends on what your path in life is, where you are, and what you're looking for. So it's a wrap, guys. That was 4 lessons from 4 countries in the Caribbean that I lived in. Each of them taught me something really important. And if you're afraid of making the leap because you think that you might feel lonely, or you don't know if you'll find your big happy place in one go, listen, you're not going to have the answers right away. Maybe if you've been there already multiple times, but if not, you just got to jump in, and then you got to take the lessons as they come. And that really is the beauty of having the privilege of living abroad. It's a phenomenal thing because it opens your eyes to so many things about other people, but also about yourself. And it brings you clarity if you're open to embracing the lessons. And let us know, have you ever learned a lesson that was life-changing abroad? Thanks for watching, guys. Remember to subscribe, to like, share, and thank you so much for supporting my channel. I'll see you next time.